Hey there everybody, this is Prickly Hedgehog. Welcome back to the channel. Just a short video today on something that comes up a lot in my channel where people ask me where a new product is, whether that's say core engine updates such as 2.8 or a brand new module or a map or whatever else it is, that's something new that has been injected into the game. There's a bit of fanfare from Eagle Dynamics and of course content creators like myself. And then I've got fairly new players, I suspect, looking for this product in the game, and they're not seeing it. And the primary reason for that is that there are quite a lot of people out there that are running just the stable version of the game. And of course, there are two versions of the game out there that you can run. In theory, you could run both versions of the game. And these are stable version, as I mentioned, and then the open beta version. And what's the difference, you may ask? Why are there two versions of the game? Well, the open beta version of the game is essentially where ED puts all of the new content that is intended to end up in the stable version of the game down the road. After user feedback and end user feedback, that allows some testing, if you like, or some experimentation with the broader community after a product has been injected into closed beta, where they have had a finite number of testers looking at something, then moves to open beta, where we get to play with it a little bit. Finally, after that process has settled and percolated a little bit, then it gets injected into the stable version of the game. Now, if you're a new player, this video will probably be a little bit more informative. If you're a veteran, this will all make perfect sense to you and you probably don't need to continue watching. But if you're a new player and you've probably come to this screen that you're looking at right now, where you get to download a couple of different versions of the game and you've got to pick one. And perhaps not misleadingly, one of the versions there that you can see at the top says best for single players. That is that if you're not intending to do multiplayer, then it is perfectly okay to run this version of the game because it is the most stable. You're going to have less crashes. You're not going to have the issues that you might have with an open beta version of the game, which is, of course, inherently less stable. The problem, of course, is that you're not going to get all the new stuff, and that's what most players are looking for when they've purchased a brand new module. It's available in open beta, but it's not in the stable version of the game yet. Now, many, many moons ago, it used to be kind of a disadvantage because the stable version of the game wasn't updated very regularly. These days, I think on average, unless I'm mistaken, most updates occur roughly 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the complexity of the introduction of whatever new content ED's putting in there. 2.8 might be an example of that, where there's a pretty big update and there might be a longer open beta testing process, if you like, or feedback process for Eagle Dynamics, allowing them time to both get the feedback and also make some corrections. And we've already had some updates last week in a new patch to correct some things, to make some fixes, so on and so forth, which is always an ongoing process with a very complex and big game like this, before it ends up in the stable version of the game. So it's a little bit misleading to say that this is the best version for single players because, in fact, a lot of the content isn't there and most players are looking for the content. And as I said, it was a disadvantage years ago to be running the stable version of the game because you didn't get access to all the candy, and most people want the candy. Bottom line is that most players in DCS world are running open beta. And the flip side of that, which is kind of indicated in the download page there, is that most of the multiplayer servers are people who also want to experience the candy and all the goodies that come out, and most of the multiplayer servers are running open beta. So if you go to the stable version of the game, if you happen to be running that, and you open up the multiplayer server list, you will find that there's not a whole lot of stable servers out there. And if you, by comparison, go to the open beta version of the game and you were to open up the multiplayer list, you're going to see a whole lot more servers there. So that's the kind of advantage, if you like, and the disadvantage at the same time. Open beta, likely less stable, going to have some more bugs. The advantage, it does have more multiplayer servers, and it also has all of the new content that's been injected into the game, but it may not function as well initially until some more updates. So it's kind of a toss-up. depending on what your preference is. There's no right or wrong answer there. The other issue is that some people then ask, well, do I need to run both versions of the game? And of course, you don't really need to unless you have the space, or like me, I used to run both versions as a content creator to make comparatives, which I didn't necessarily always share, but I was kind of curious to see, how something looked in the old version of the game as opposed to something new. And if you're not really doing that, or if you don't really have the space for both versions of the game, there's not really an advantage in running both of them, to be perfectly honest. And like I said, hands down, most people are running the open beta version of the game in order to get access to all the goodies. And that's particularly important if you have, for example, purchased a new product, whether that's a map or a module, or if you're wanting to experience some new updates to the game that are visual and aesthetic, and want to test to see if my VR headset runs with it, which we've had some complaints about recently with 2.8, that's the place to test it. If you, again, are wanting to do both, let's say you are somebody who loves playing in VR and can't do without it, at least you could enjoy the game in the more stable version of the game until ED irons that out. So again, it's a big onus on you in terms of data storage to have both versions of the game. And for a lot of people, I know that's not practical. And I've had issues where people have brought up, hey, I don't have the ability to pay for this because the data download is too big and stuff like that. So, it's sort of what we say back home, swings and roundabouts in terms of whether or not that's practical. But I think the bottom line to remember is that open beta is the version that most people use. So I hope that makes some sense in terms of why there are two versions of the game out there, and a little bit of the history as to why a lot of people are using open beta, and just clarify the fact that you can run both. You could run just one, the stable, if you're looking for none of the issues that may crop up with an open beta version of the game, or if you want all the new candy and you're willing to accept that it's not going to be perfect when it comes out, that there may be issues that crop up, there may be bugs, there may be even crashes to desktop and frustrations with it. If that's something that you can handle, then there's an advantage in doing that, because you get to, like I said, experience all the cool stuff, so to speak, before it gets released into the stable version of the game. But bear in mind, as I said, the delay is not as long as it used to be. It used to be months sometimes. And then Eagle Dynamics did a lot of work in making sure that the stable version of the game wasn't left behind. Now I think you're averaging, like I said, I hope, somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks on average. That's a bit of a guess because I'm not running both versions of the game these days, but that's what I've noticed in the past. All right, that'll do. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that provided some clarification if you're a new player, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.